tonight recording video stream as well. Let's go over to X. X marks the spot. Can we hear Trump speaking?
Do that, then Putin would say he won. We're the thing that's holding it back. And frankly, we'll go as long as we have to go because we're not going to let the other happen. But President Putin wants to have peace now, and that's good. And he didn't want to have peace with Biden.
Was that conversation with Putin?
And you tell me why that is.
Yeah, you tell me why. You tell me why. Okay. Oh, there's Andrew. Andrew has joined. And well, let's make Andrew a co-host. Can we do that? Invite to co-host. Andrew, are you the co-host now? Oh, I think I was muted that whole time.
Me too. Yeah, I think we were both muted.
Okay, so
it's automatically muted.
Yep. So when we start out, we just got to unmute ourselves immediately. That's okay. So I posted the link to this space on my Facebook. So if people want to tune in, they can.
Oh, great. Let me see if I can do that as well.
Yeah, up towards the top of the space.
Copy link.
Yeah, share, and you could put it on your Twitter. I think mine automatically goes onto my Twitter/X feed because
Is it pre-titled? Do you think you'll see the title, or should I say?
The title should be in there. It says, "Are we witnessing a coup?"
Just wondering if on Facebook.
Actually, yeah. No, it doesn't. It just says x.com.
Cool.
Maybe I should adjust mine as well. Edit post. Are we witnessing a coup?
So if I write right under my Facebook post, "Are we witnessing a coup?" Someone called the Subversive Lens has tweeted or has Facebook posted a meme of Elon Musk next to Donald Trump at the Resolute desk with a picture of the King of Rohan with Worm Tongue next to him from Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Very coup-like.
Yeah, so Elon Musk is standing behind the Resolute desk with his son, and he's issuing edicts and answering questions to the press. I wonder how Trump is going to feel about this. sharing the spotlight with Musk. That's one thing that I feel like could potentially stymie their progress, is if they can't manage to keep working together.
Yeah, because, and from what I've read, and I hadn't read much into Elon Musk's personality before. I mean, Donald Trump obviously is a narcissist, virtually at a clinical level. But Elon Musk, in the last year or so, I've read enough about him and his relationships to suggest he's very much a narcissist as well. And narcissists typically don't get along that well unless one has the seniority and the other is sort of riding in their wake, expecting power in the future, kind of like the Sith
Mm-hmm.
Sith lords killing each other for the seat of power. Not to be too dramatic about it, but yeah, I can tell Elon Musk is very, very much self-interested and egotistical as well.
Yeah, I feel I've been witnessing his fall to the dark side for years now, because I was kind of an Elon Musk fanboy a few years ago, up until maybe 5 years ago, and then it's been this slow shift, and it seemed like the shift corresponded with his views about Ukraine for me. And like the moment it came out that he sort of pulled the plug on Starlink during an important Ukrainian operation, since that point it just seems like more and more and more he's been parroting Russian propaganda, as far as I'm concerned. So my deepest, darkest fear right now is that essentially the mafia, the Russian mafia, maybe the world mafia, has sort of taken control of the United States. I mean, it's been my view that for quite some time, the Russian mafia has been in control of Russia. That basically Putin is the head of the Russian mafia. The Russian mafia has fused with the FSB, the former KGB, and that they have a stranglehold on Russia, and that they've been trying for a long time to get power beyond the borders of Russia. And people have been telling me I'm crazy or a conspiracy theorist to think that Trump is actually owned by Putin or compromised by Putin or in cahoots with Putin. But I'm not really necessarily sure it's an exaggeration to say things like that at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just seeing his what he's coming up with today, basically saying that he's going to make a deal with Putin. They've had long conversations privately, and it looks. I think I forget. I guess it was Secretary of State Hegseth said basically if Ukraine thinks it's going to get any land back from its original borders, then this peace deal is not going to happen. So basically, they're not there. That's what the deal is. Trump is working up is one where they take all the land loss that Russia has taken in the last 3 years.
Yeah, it's kind of like they showed their hand because they basically publicly gave a backstop to the negotiations. It's like they've already given them NATO, Ukraine not joining NATO, and Ukraine giving up that land or most of the land. So, like, where do you go from here with the negotiations?
Right.
Because Ukraine still has millions of people in Russian captivity or in the occupied areas. What is their fate? And what about all the damage that Russia has wrought on Ukraine? How is that going to be addressed? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe we can talk more domestically, just like in terms of what Musk and Trump are doing, like what they've already done. Because it seems to me that there's already a long list of things that I think are illegal that they have done and that are going to be like incredibly damaging to our economy and to our system of government, essentially. Like they're dismantling huge government organizations overnight with the stroke of a pen, which seems like it's going to be incredibly damaging. I kind of want to like just start making a list of all the things that they've done that I think should essentially be illegal.
Well, I mean, the first thing being, firing, trying to control the purse, which is Congress's job.
Yes.
Right. And firing people without cause, asking them to leave and promising them 10 months severance when that's actually technically illegal.
Yeah, because that's using our money. That's using like public money to sort of pay off people to leave.
Right.
So that you can put your loyalists in. That seems like it should be illegal. If it's not, I feel like it is.
I think it is illegal. But, does Congress back him up? He's got, we've got two houses with Republican majorities. Do they back him up? Or do they just let people flap in the wind when they're like, oh, sorry, we tried to offer you that, but Congress wouldn't honor it. So you're already fired. You're already gone. So sorry, we can't pay you for 10 months.
Yeah, so that's going to be huge. And my guess is that's going to the courts. And there's also going to be battles playing out within the agencies where employees are going to feel like it's their duty to resist this and they're going to stay. And then there's going to be different ways of looking to fire them probably, including maybe just completely defunding these organizations. So I haven't heard too many details yet about the FBI and the CIA, but I saw one headline that was like essentially Musk has offered a buyout to all CIA employees. Like essentially they're willing to fire the entire CIA.
That sounds incredibly dangerous for our survival as a country.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because all the other big nations have their form of the CIA, which has a lot of knowledge base and historical knowledge base of their opponents, and also like assets and agents in different countries in our country. So we obliterate the current intelligence family, and they're all gone, and replace them with new people who don't know the ropes or don't know anything about what's been going on for the last 10, 20, 30 years. That sounds like it's completely destroying American intelligence.
Yeah,
And
and
it
it
would put
sounds
us
like
at a
a gift.
huge strategic disadvantage.
Sounds like a gift to our enemies. It sounds like a gift to Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping.
And China.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally. I mean, how many other examples similar to this?
Well, there's
can we
USAID,
see?
which they just shut it down overnight, and some of the excuses, some of the fraud that they're claiming, the thing that they think will outrage people to get people to be like, oh, well, you know what, it was full of fraudulent stuff. They're lying and making up and sort of like taking examples out of context to make it seem like it's ridiculous. One example that and Musk said this, and actually he was challenged on it in the White House. He said, "Oh, $8 million to send condoms to Gaza. How ridiculous is that? You know, what do they need condoms for in Gaza? Blah 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 blah." Well, it turns out that program was actually it was a place called Gaza that's in Mozambique in Africa, and that they have a large HIV/AIDS problem there, and there's a program to send condoms and other stuff. That was part of the program there. So, and the reporter called Musk out on it.
An innocent mistake, Michael.
It was an innocent mistake, right? And when the reporter called Musk out on it, he said like, "Well, I will say things that are wrong. I will make mistakes. Nobody bets 1,000." And so he just basically says like, "Oh, sorry, my bad on that one." But it's just like, what are the actual real examples that you're going after? For one, two, what authority do you have to just shut this down? If you want to audit the organization, then audit it. I think we'd all like to see the audit, though I believe there are actually always audits happening. There are inspectors general in all these agencies, and I believe I heard that Trump and Musk have fired all of the inspectors general now. So all the people. Have you heard that?
All of them? I heard 17 were fired before.
Somehow I thought it was like all of them, like all agencies, but I don't know that.
Well, I may not be up to date on that. That may be new news. I mean, they're basically blitzkrieging us on the news. Sorry for the Nazi reference, but they're shotgunning us with all these actions. Not necessarily because they're going to get things done quickly, but because it's overwhelming to everybody who wants to resist them or just be knowledgeable about what's going on. It's actually quite overwhelming. And I think that's part of their strategy, as Steve Bannon said years ago, called muzzle velocity. Like how quickly can you shoot the news with too much information for them to actually provide to the people, such that the people can absorb it and understand what's actually going on.
Yeah. Do you want to talk more about that? Because I feel like that's actually like central to their strategy right now, is they're trying to like bulldoze us over with outrage, such that we can't even keep up with it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the central problem in America today, and it's why Trump got elected both times. Is that we've gotten to essentially a post-factual politics time in which people are so trapped in their ideological echo chambers that they don't really want to know what the news is if it differs with their narrative. And Trump realized that, and he just doubled down on his narrative, even if it was factually incorrect, over and over and over again. And the most recent example being, that helicopter airplane crash in DC, he immediately, without any evidence at all, and admits he has no evidence to the reporters, but he just says, I know, because I have common sense. I know it was the DEI hires that happened when I wasn't in office.
Yes.
That somehow compromised traffic controllers, even though he doesn't know if it was the military. He doesn't know whose fault it was. He's immediately blaming, because that's part of his agenda. And his base already hates DEI, because even though they don't necessarily know what it is, they already think that's the demon, that's the enemy to hate. So he throws that at you. And so this disinformation campaign is constant. And there's a little thing in cognitive biases called circular logic. It's a logical fallacy that just like, if the more times you say something, the easier it is for people to believe it, because it's become familiar. Even if it was obviously false to begin with, people start doubting themselves eventually and go, well, maybe that is true. I've heard it a lot. And so that's kind of what's going on here. The more times he doubles down on his narrative, facts or not, the more people agree with him.
Yeah, like if you repeat the lie enough times and repeat it louder and louder, people just begin to believe it.
Yeah. And the great danger here is that power, regardless of which president is in power, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican or somebody else, if that person does not have the check and balance of news saying, no, the president lied, no, this is actually not true, or no, these tariffs will actually hurt the people who are factory workers more than it helps. If there's no one countering that narrative, then there is no democracy. There is no way to actually counter a president if their pulpit, if their bully pulpit and their word is king, then they're a king.
Yeah, and they're making moves to stifle opposition media. I heard that the AP was like kicked out of the White House now. I don't know if permanently or for one meeting, but because the AP refused to refer to the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America at some point. And then so Trump or Pete Hegseth or somebody said like, okay, you're kicked out of the briefing because you're not towing our line. So that sounds like an intimidation to me. And I also heard that the Pentagon has moved all, like the NPR and a bunch of other left or center media organizations out of their offices in the Pentagon, and they've brought in Breitbart and Newsmax and OAN and all the right-wing medias. So I guess
which I just need to say, and I people will disagree with me, perhaps, but those news organizations aren't just right-wing. They're not just the counterparts to PBS or NBC. There's a huge difference in their factual accuracy and accountability, and so one's leans right, one leans left, but one of those organizations actually is reputable and double checks, gets two sources for their stories and double checks facts, and the other literally bends reality into a distorted level. And so it's they're not comparable. And I in the battle for truth in politics, we're losing that one by these types of moves. Are strategically very potent. They look little on the surface, but they're not. These are the whole game is being determined here.
Yeah.
And so many people have leaned into podcasts instead of legacy media, as they're now calling it.
That's why
and
we're doing
that's
this
just
podcast. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Give the people what they want.
Give people what they want. But like journalists who have been who spent years in school to become journalists, like the temperament, the mentality of those types of people, the philosophy of those type of people is to out government corruption. Like that's the main thing journalists thrive on. These are people who have done great work, are sophisticated researchers, more sophisticated than your average podcaster. And they typically have a fair amount of integrity. You can argue about that. But journalists, on average, and the culture of journalism is one that wants to expose a truth about power. And so the idea that, oh no, this podcaster who's pushing all these products and getting paid by so and so and so and so and makes more money by selling outrage than by, and basically confirming the narratives of their target audience rather than speaking factually about things, that person's going to have more accurate results in mainstream media is, to me, quite unlikely.
Yeah, I agree. And I think another thing that scares me is that I think what this administration is going to do is they're going to have corruption writ large as this bogeyman that they're going after, and I think that they're going to usher in their own unique brand of corruption that's going to be 10 or 100 times worse than the corruption we've been seeing. And I feel like they're going to do what I consider, Russian style or Soviet style or autocratic style um, w- weaponization of the justice system. Exactly what Trump's been accusing his rivals of this for 4 years. He's saying all of the criminal cases against him are on trumped up charges, and that the justice system has been weaponized. But I feel like that's exactly what they were going to start doing now, and they've already started indicating it. Like, I've seen them indicating that they're going to be going after Liz Cheney and anybody involved in the January 6th investigations. They're going to
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
I think it's clear that they've done that, and the justice. I mean, Trump said this is going to be the end of weaponizing the justice system when he got elected, which is just a gigantic lie, because already they've pardoned all these January 6th people, even the ones who literally attacked and injured police officers,
Mm-hmm.
which is a which is a way of basically rewarding illegality
Mm-hmm.
when it's pro-Trump, right? So
Yeah.
that is a huge signal from leadership that if you're on my side while I'm in power, you can get away with anything.
Right. And if
And
you're on
then
the other
and
side,
then
we'll go after you for essentially for
right.
nothing. We'll find
And
something on you.
and the most absurd example of this in my mind is the pulling the security detail of Mark Milley, even though he didn't
Mm.
need the Justice Department to do that. Like, he pulled the security detail on the general who was in charge of the operation to kill the number two of Al Qaeda, which Trump was incredibly proud of, and pranced that around for quite a while after it was done. Oh, my big military victory, right? This is better than Obama killing Osama bin Laden, right? Like, he was so excited about that. Mark Milley was behind the operation. Mark Milley spoke out against Trump uh, in the last year or two as basically not being fit for office because he's got these autocratic tendencies. And so Trump is pulled his security detail, which makes him publicly done it as well, which makes him a human target. I mean, that is egregiously dangerous. And it tells everyone else, you cross me, I'm going to open you up to your death, potentially.
Yeah, and that scares the hell out of me. And it's not, I feel like this is only the beginning. I think Trump also has pulled security clearances from all of the 50 former and current intelligence officers who signed that letter about the Hunter Biden laptop back when that was coming out. A bunch of professionals in the intelligence agency signed this letter saying this has all the earmarks of Russian disinformation campaign, and that was their professional opinion at the time. And they're trying to frame that as that was like a smear campaign against Trump, that there's absolutely no reason to suspect any kind of collaboration with Russia. By the way, I'm going to go on record and say that I think all of the allegations about collusion with Russia are true. And I think there's more. I think the actual collusion with Putin and Russia is more than the public even knows. But again,
But we don't have
I
evidence to
don't have
prove
it.
that at this
That's
point.
just my operating theory. Um, Here, I wish I could play this so that you could hear it. Let me play it real quick. It's like a 30-second clip. It's saying Pam Bondi announces the DOJ has filed charges against the state of New York, Kathy Hochul, Letitia James, and Mark Schroeder. Um, so Letitia James was one of those DAs, right? That was prosecuting one of the cases against Trump. So I think anybody who's prosecuted Trump is going to now be a target for retribution attack. Let me play this real quick, and I'll tell you what they said.
I was in the West Wing swearing in Tulsi Gabbard, and so I just came straight back here. So thanks for being.
She said I was in the West Wing just swearing in Tulsi Gabbard. I just got here. This is Pam Bondi, the new. Is she the head? She's the head of the Justice Department now, right? She's like Trump's loyalist who's in charge of the entire. She's the Attorney General. Okay, let me just hear the rest of this.
Patient with us with the delay. We're here today because we have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed
charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul.
Charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV. This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment.
Okay, well, basically that was the announcement. I'll have to dig into this. This has just happened, I guess. So, yeah, it looks like we're going to see them just, go after their political rivals using the power of the justice system. And that's so un-American, and it's like it's evil in my mind.
And let's just unpackage that a little bit for people, because it's like, oh well, I didn't like Mark Milley anyway, or I didn't like Anthony Fauci. I think he was lying to us a little bit during COVID. It doesn't. It's not nearly that simple. It's not just a couple of people. It's the precedent that it sets for everybody else, because now everyone else can expect to be punished if they speak out against Trump. It means everyone in Congress, everyone who could potentially stop Trump from doing something egregiously un-American or bad for the American people are now afraid to do it because of their actual human bodily and family security.
Yeah, it's putting everyone on notice.
That's why people are scared of Donald Trump as a demagogue or an autocrat, because this is the shit he's been talking about, and now he's actually doing it.
Yeah, I feel personally nervous actually now. In general, I feel like freedom of speech is going to come under attack in a way that it's never been in our lives. And I'm worried that Trump and his minions could come after even regular Joe Schmoes like me who are critical of him or speaking out. Probably as long as I stay an unknown Joe Schmo, they won't waste their time. But
let's think about Stephen Colbert or the night show host who every day attack the president, right? Like, because that's their job. but they're pretty they got a lot of a lot of material on Trump to attack him with. But they've been talking after his election. They're all making jokes as if they're like, we didn't mean it. We love you. We think you're great. They're like all trying to play nice in a joking way for laughs. But literally, if one of them gets like pulled off the air because of intimidation or lawsuits or some shit, it's more of a sign that Trump is literally punishing his enemies, so that there are no one's brave enough to speak out against him.
Yeah, it's of intimidation, and it might actually work. And it already feels like there's a chilling effect been going through the media, where many prominent voices are not really taking a very hard line on this. Everyone's kind of in wait and see where this goes mode. And which maybe to some degree that's warranted, but I feel like all these red lights are flashing, like the dashboard is flashing red now for like attack on democracy, attack on free speech, rise of authoritarianism, and I mean, what is their end game here? Because they're saying they're doing it to save money, and to save the country, right?
To save America.
Yeah, they're here to save
from the deep state, from these nonpartisan bureaucrats, who are clearly destroying America. And how much money do they? is actually spent on those bureaucrats?
Are you asking? Is that a
I
rhetorical
don't.
question?
Yeah. I know. Well, it's both. It would be good to have the actual statistic in front of me. But what I do remember statistically is that we had the largest State Department, the most people employed by the state, um, back in the early '90s under Bush Senior. Reagan had apparently inflated the federal government, and it continued under Bush. And Clinton's the one who reduced the federal government employees by like 400,000,
Hmm.
which was partly why he balanced the budget, I guess, at the end of his term, but probably not the main reason, because there's, again, the salaries of these government workers is not any kind of majority of the U.S. budget.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fair amount of money, but salaries is not the bigger part of the budget. We're nearly spending $1 trillion on the military every year. I'm pretty sure the State Department, salaries comes nowhere near that figure.
Yeah, probably not. Um, and no doubt I'm sure there's plenty of waste in the government, and in general, I think it's good to be looking at efficiency and reining in corruption and reining in waste. But again, I think they're using that. They're using, instead of a scalpel to go in there and trim the fat, they're just using a steamroller to completely obliterate all of these programs. And like USAID, for example, one of the big things that they do is feed the hungry around the world. And in doing so, it's like a flex of America's soft power too. It's like, look, we're your friends. We're helping you out. We're coming in when there's a emergency. And I've heard that there's now I don't remember the number, but there's a massive amount of food that's just been in transit. It was something 500 tons of food or whatever. There's just like food now sitting in container ships on ports, and that's just no one knows what to do with it now. It's interrupted, and that farmers in Kansas are already feeling the effects of this because the USAID was a large buyer of American food crops, grains and such, and so like now all of a sudden you're removing that huge buyer from the market overnight, and so all of a sudden it's like farmers aren't going to be able to sell all of there's going to be like a grain glut in some areas, and it's not going to be going where it needs to go. And programs that
Right.
USAID has been working on developing for years, years-long projects, in many cases to actually help our interests abroad, to sort of build relationships with people in countries around the world that we want good relationships with, and that's just all getting cut overnight.
And this is what's so weird is that if Trump talks so tough about China, and we want to rival China's influence in the world because China's been buying up a lot of influence in Africa, apparently in Panama, supposedly. We're worried about them trying to tap resources in Greenland, which is why we want to buy or take Greenland. Like, if Trump's talking all about this, why would he cut U.S. aid, which is our version of China's soft power, maintaining influence over all these regions in the world? You know, uh, it seems counterproductive. It seems like that kind of maneuver is going to actually cost us influence globally, and allow China to have more dominance over world power.
Yeah, and Russia too, and Ukraine was receiving a lot of USAID monies, and it's the country that sort of needed it the most right now. Is one way that we were able to help because their economy has been totally decimated by Putin's war on them. They've basically been the victim of a massive terror campaign for 3 years. So USAID was funding things like demining operations so that they can regain the use of their agricultural fields, helping bolster, rebuilding power plants and just all kinds of things throughout the economy to help them stay afloat through this difficult time. So, I mean, I know that Russia and Putin hated USAID because they had projects in Russia. We were actually helping some stuff in Russia up until 2012. we were basically funding pro-democracy and pro-free speech groups, and Putin didn't want any of that to be happening anymore. So
Right.
USAID just seemed like the reason it was the first target is because Putin didn't like it, and they went after that immediately. So again, that to me feels like a gift to Putin, and it feels like a nod to Putin. And I'm watching very, very closely everything that Trump does with regard to Russia and Putin. Like, I'm watching under the microscope because I seriously think there's a massive, massive conflict of interest there.
Yeah. Now, the subject of our talk, the coup, I mean, this really refers a lot to Elon Musk, right? Who is unelected, hasn't even gone through one of those brutal congressional hearings to confirm his appointment because it's just a new department of government efficiency. But he's literally going to be, if he continues, if he is allowed to do what he's going to do, he's going to be overseeing government spending that has to do with like almost, I think, all of his companies. Basically, all the companies he owns stand to benefit dramatically from his involvement in government. And isn't that probably why his stock shares went through the roof after Trump was elected?
Oh yeah, Musk spent about $275 million helping Trump get elected, and then his net worth almost overnight since the election has gone up by like $200 billion.
Yeah,
And that,
because people are anticipating him having so much leverage over the future of the markets for his industries, right?
yeah, he's one of the biggest recipients of government handouts actually, and government contracts. I mean, there's probably never been a bigger like conflict of interest ever than what we're seeing right now with Elon Musk, his government contracts, and the fact that he is this weird, unelected, unofficial co-president who stands behind the resolute desk, almost making a mockery of the Oval Office, having his kid there picking his nose behind the desk while he lies to us and claims that he is going to be in charge of policing his own potential conflicts of interest here, and expecting us to all just
Right.
accept that.
Just trust him. Just trust me. I'm only a cutthroat billionaire who has a history of just firing people and cutting industries and sort of ruthlessly. Just trust me.
Yeah, why should we? I mean, he's been lying more and more and more since he bought X a year and a half ago. He has posted and boosted and amplified so much misinformation and disinformation on there. It's hard to even keep track of it. I think I maybe want to do a separate video where I just go through and talk about all the stuff he's pushed. He pushed that conspiracy theory that Paul Pelosi's attacker was some kind of, that they were in some kind of love tryst, when in fact the attacker didn't, Paul Pelosi had never met him. And Paul Pelosi easily could have gotten killed in that attack. He was hit in the head with a hammer by a guy that broke into his house looking for Nancy. And that was such a brutal, tragic, essentially, act of what could be called political violence. And here he is immediately just pushing conspiracy theories and misinformation. And that's not even
He's like
the most.
he's like Alex Jones.
Yes, totally.
He's like
Jones.
he's become Alex Jones, only he owns the entire Twitter platform. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter.
Yeah.
And I don't follow Elon Musk, but I see his posts more than anyone else's posts.
Oh yeah.
When I'm on Twitter,
he
by far.
tweaked the algorithm. In fact, there's a story about it. It was like at I want to say the Super Bowl last year, where Joe Biden tweeted like "Go Eagles" or something, and Musk tweeted like the same thing, and Joe Biden got way more views on his tweet than Musk, and it infuriated Musk. So he like 2:37 in the morning, he called his engineers into a meeting and he said like, "This needs to stop. I need to be the loudest voice on Twitter," and they changed something, and then I've even heard that they amplified Musk's visibility by a factor of 1,000. And if you go on Twitter, if you go on X now, it's pretty much everybody will see Elon Musk's posts in their feed constantly. and he is
And these
constantly boosting. All he has to do is retweet any story, and that becomes front page news. So he can totally dominate the
Right.
narrative on there, and he can squelch the voices of people he doesn't like on there, which supposedly he's doing.
Right. Which is why it was strategically so smart of him to buy Twitter, even if it was way overpriced
Yeah,
at, you know,
he used
$44 billion.
billions of dollars of foreign money, including Russian investors and Saudi investors, I believe, to way overpay for this platform, and then he basically destroyed it in what it used to be, this really valuable public square for disseminating ideas. It's basically not that anymore because there's so many trolls and bots on there and disinformation that it's no longer really, like it doesn't seem to be a neutral source of information anymore. It's sort of become this propaganda machine. And I still go on there all the time because I'm trying to keep an eye on what narratives they're pushing. I still like the platform. I'm still sort of addicted to it, I would even say, just because of
Yeah.
its real-time nature. But in my opinion, Musk's buying Twitter and then using it, turning it basically into a Trump propaganda machine, very likely skewed the election for Trump. I can't prove that.
Oh,
We'll
yeah.
never be able to necessarily prove that.
But it was definitely a factor.
Yeah, and
It was definitely a
if you
factor.
consider that like a $40 billion campaign, a $40 billion campaign
Donation.
donation that included billions of dollars of foreign money, like how is that not a major source of campaign finance violation at a minimum? And I also heard that
Right.
they would target people with their ads, and Musk put so much money into there. First of all, he did that thing where they were basically paying people, offering people $1 million to register to vote. That felt illegal to me. There's some laws that say you can't hand out water to people standing in voter lines. If there's a long line, you can't go and hand them bottles of water. That would be a violation. But Musk can do $1 million. What do you call it? Lotteries or whatever to get people to vote, and that's not getting any scrutiny.
Yeah, the news definitely hammered that a little bit, but it didn't seem to
Yeah,
be.
it just disappears, a blip, and then
Yeah,
we don't
that
know
important people.
what if there was actually election tampering, but both Trump and Musk have kind of like alluded to the fact that there was. Certainly, like Trump, on live TV said, no, that Elon he's good with those voting machines. He really knows those vote counting machines inside and out. And what did he mean by that? Did they actually do some kind of tampering with the vote using Starlink? I don't know. I feel like there's zero
Right.
proof of that. And since Trump spent 4 years claiming without any proof that his election was stolen, now I feel like we can't do that because then we're just the same as him. But I honestly feel like something so untoward happened in this last election. At a very minimum,
Yeah.
I feel like Trump won on a basis of disinformation and misinformation. Because
Well, that's obviously true because he was blaming the price of eggs on Biden and I mean, various things
Yeah.
that really have nothing to do with the presidency. Now, is that just become politics as usual? I would say no. I would say that Trump's level of lying and sort of his base is willful ignorance and just neglect of fact checking and just like I'm just going to drive home any narrative I want. That's really changed politics in America. It was never that crazy before Trump, and now it's like you try to talk to your friend who kind of likes Trump a little bit, and your realities, you have no factual basis for agreement on reality because one person's literally believing a completely different narrative than you.
Yeah, we're just, and it almost seems like everybody's in their own information bubble now. And when that's the case, we can't really organize any resistance because everybody's got their own little different reality that they're working from. Oh, Sam just said another huge reason to overpay for Twitter. When the value goes down, it counts as a carried loss he can use for years to pay less taxes due to losses. Yeah, probably a good point.
If he ever pays taxes,
Yeah,
that is right.
It's,
You know, but absolutely right. Like he's made so much money when he finally does, pull any capital gains out for himself. Um, yeah, he'll have write-offs to reduce things, I guess, but or just for corporate taxes.
yeah.
That's it. But so let's tie this all together, because it doesn't look like Trump or Musk are doing things to really help American interests, either domestically or abroad, does it?
Not to me. Yeah, I'm very curious what people think good is gonna. People think it's gonna be massive savings. I guess it's gonna somehow come back as tax breaks, or at very least paying down the national debt. Right. I guess that's the one thing that they could claim potentially.
I would love to see that, but I don't see it. like the big things that they'd have to cut to actually balance the budget and reduce the national debt would be the massive things like Social Security, Medicare, or the military, and that's political suicide, right? Any one of those things is gonna cause people great scare and panic, because people are on fixed incomes surviving, and people are bankrupted by medical bills. So if they don't tackle those systems, they're not likely to really change, really move the needle on the national debt. And if they do, it's like, yeah, they really are completely butchering the government and all of the entitlements that have been set up.
Yeah,
But I guess go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, I can obviously argue that, well, maybe that is what's needed. Like maybe if we don't ever balance the budget, we're going down anyway, right? And so maybe
Yeah,
someone
it's one of those
did
things
need to
nobody
come
knows. It's
along,
like a red line that we don't know where it actually is. Like where do we in
right?
danger of default?
And Trump, for as reactive as he is to personal attacks, he seems to keep operating regardless of how many personal attacks he gets. So maybe he is the bulldozer needed to finally shake things up or change the system, the status quo, which has been gradually getting worse. But I guess I think what we're concerned about more than any of that, which is like, okay, like maybe that is what's going to happen, but I don't think that's going to save the country when we're literally pulling our influence out of competing with China for economic influence in countries all over the world. We're literally handing countries over to potential military rivals like Russia. Like, oh no, go take whatever you want. Well, who cares if it's is against international law to be an empire and invade other countries? We'll do it. We'll do it too. Like this sort of going to a, I don't know, gunslinger mafioso mentality around foreign policy is not in alignment with most of most of my libertarian friends who may have thought Trump was going to, reduce government and help the economy, right? Like that's not what's happening there. Elon Musk, does he really want America to be great again? Or is it really more about him and his bottom line? And if America goes under, either the dollar collapses or we have a civil war, or somehow we implode and China takes the new seat of power, Elon Musk is going to be sitting pretty, because he's got factories in China making a ton of money. He's got his money is mobile.
Yeah,
he can move to some other country and just go, America's done. I'm going to live in Europe, or I'm going to live in China, or I'm going to, move back to South Africa once it's I don't know. Uh,
Yeah.
it's he stands to gain, and he doesn't have a lot I mean, there's not a lot to lose here for him, it seems.
Yeah, well, my biggest fear is that basically this whole thing is an elaborate theft, essentially, and that these billionaires. Well, first of all, I feel like the single biggest problem with the American system right now is the massive wealth disparity, which has only gotten worse and worse and worse in the last 40, 50 years, and it seems like it's on an exponential curve upward. And I feel like it's only a
Yeah.
matter of time in general before there's a sort of uprising where people begin to feel like they're all wage slaves under a
Right.
plutocracy. And what it looks to
And
me like, oh, go ahead.
by the way, just to insert real quickly, cutting taxes on the wealthy, like Trump did in his first term, and cutting corporate taxation, that's the quickest trigger. That's the quickest lever to make the rich richer while the poor get poorer.
Yeah,
It's shown consistently across across the last century,
yeah, and
basically.
it's and
So
it's
if you want the rich to get richer, Trump was a good bet.
yeah, and it seems like they're just signaling more of that. And my fear is, and I don't know exactly how they're going to do this, but watch for this. I feel like there's gonna at some point they're gonna introduce some crypto maneuver, which they're gonna claim is somehow gonna help with taxes, or it's gonna help with managing the national debt, or it's just gonna be a better financial system or something, and it's gonna have the effect of deflating the value of the dollar, and it's gonna be like it's gonna just create um, a new instance of haves and have-nots, like the people that buy into this their crypto reserve currency or whatever they want to do are going to end up seeing their money multiply, and those who don't are going to see all their savings wiped out. That's a completely hypothetical fear, I guess, of mine. Although they have teased things like that, I've heard them mentioning something about a crypto reserve, and I think it's something we should keep an eye on very closely. But my fear is that they want to take our system, which is currently already massively skewed towards the rich. We're making like tax breaks for the rich, and they want to go 10 or 100 times more so, and just basically make it so all the wealth gets extracted into the hands of their people. Again, we'll have to follow that. It's an
Well,
outrageous claim by me, I suppose, but that's where I see this all going.
Musk already owns Doggy Coin, right? Dogecoin,
Dogecoin, yeah,
like
they could
that's his
right there,
crypto.
and then Trump has his shitcoin too, I believe they call him, which
And
has netted him billions overnight
of theoretical value,
of
because
theoretical value. Yeah,
of course, all of these cryptocurrencies are backed by nothing, which means they have no material value that you can bank on. But it's all confidence. It's an all confidence game, right? So we're back to the gambling table. And the US dollar, you could say, is the same thing, only it's backed by the US government and our massive economy, which would severely be crippled if there was no confidence in the US dollar. So it's complicated, but could a crypto coin take over for the US dollar? Well, yeah, if it's about to completely collapse, it could. But again, that means that all of the middle class and lower class people who have money in the bank um, are going to have nothing when that dollar collapses. And everyone who's got on the right coin that now is being backed by the U.S. or not. I mean, or whatever it's being backed by, those people are going to have assets, and most Americans will not.
yeah,
So in a way, that's sort of like just basically breaking the basically sucking the value out of the system and then kicking the can down the road.
yeah. So that's one of my deepest, darkest fears here, and I just feel like we have to watch everything extremely closely, because once you have an executive branch that's acting like it's beyond the law, acting with impunity, then and somebody who's already signaled and openly said that they're planning on using the office for retribution, for revenge, essentially. I mean, this just seems like a recipe for disaster to me. Listen,
Yeah.
we're almost an hour in. I think I'm gonna end this
Okay.
call here, and we'll see how it goes. But
Great.
great first talk here, and
Thank you,
we'll
Michael.
figure
It
out
was
how
great.
to. Thank you. We'll figure out how to build an audience on next time.
All right.
Okay, thanks for joining, Andrew.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
All right, bye bye. Yes, endless space.